Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And I am very delighted. That's a word, very. I guess it is. Very. I'm delighted to have you here. Delighted is a big word in itself. Want to welcome Amnon, as always, our producer. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good.
Good.
Beautiful day, isn't it?
It's been a beautiful weekend.
I know.
Hasn't it?
Did a lot of work outside.
You did? Well, then you're going to want to hear this show for sure.
Okay.
Because it's about Lyme disease.
Oh, I didn't think about that yesterday.
Well, I'm thinking about it now. I didn't think about it either. And yesterday, actually, not yesterday, Friday night, getting ready to take a walk, and I'm thinking about the show. Haven't done it yet. Just been doing a little studying about it, and thought to myself, oh my God, I want to be careful where I walk. I'm getting a little bit scared. And I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to do these shows, because I am learning a lot from just welcoming all these phenomenal guests onto the show. I am learning an extraordinary amount, and I would not have given Lyme disease much credence, much importance in my life. I kind of would go along my way and just do my thing. But we're doing a show on Lyme disease, and really and truly, we all need to be educated about our own lives, and we need to be advocates for ourselves. And this show is going to inform and inspire you to be your own best advocate and take care of yourself. And my guest today is Kathleen Spreen. She is a physician. She is an author of the book, and I'm going to read it, The Compendium of Tick-Borne Disease, 1,000 Pearls, by Dr. Kathleen Spreen. And the interesting thing about Dr. Kathy is that she is a physician. She's a mother, and she's a mother of a son who has Lyme disease. And I believe she also had Lyme disease. If I'm not correct, she can correct me when she comes to the screen. But she's written this book to educate physicians, caretakers, patients, and all of us on how to help ourselves, how to prevent this from occurring if possible. So I want to welcome Dr. Kathy to our show. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, because any chance I get to educate people about Lyme disease and keep people from suffering the way my son had to suffer until we found appropriate care, I am very grateful for that opportunity.
Well, thank you. It's a delight to have you, and I'm grateful for you being one of those people who are willing to step up and step out to talk about something that the rest of us need educating. So tell me your story. So what happened, back when and with your son?
Well, my husband had Lyme disease a number of years ago. He was treated twice with courses of antibiotics, and he's really never been bothered by it again. I had Lyme disease, and because of that, I had to have my knee replaced. So that was a bit of a wake-up call, but the thing that truly woke me up was when my son got sick about 5 years ago. And he was so sick that I, as an old emergency room physician for many years, truly didn't believe that he was going to survive. And I tried to navigate the traditional medical system, and the physicians just had no clue on how to help him. Not the initial physicians that saw him, and that includes me. So the problem wasn't that there was not enough information. There was too much information. If you go on the web, you'll find thousands and thousands of articles, hundreds of books. But the problem is that a lot of that information is either contradictory, controversial, confusing, and I found much of it is just plain wrong. So what I did was I wrote the book that I wish I had when my son first got sick. I wanted something that physicians and other healthcare providers could just pull off the shelf and get the information they needed in order to help the patients. And I also wanted something that provided information and support to Lyme patients and their families and their caregivers, because for those patients who have persistent symptoms, You have to educate yourself, and you have to become your own advocate if you're going to have a chance of collaborating with your physician and getting the health care that you need.
So let me ask you something. Oh, first of all, let's just put up that book jacket so you can all see a copy of her book, and we'll put it up again. And we'll also post the link to the book in the chat room. So if you're listening to our show, please enter our chat. You can put your name right there under that little window, and you can take part in what's going on in there. And Chris is going to post the link shortly. So let me ask you something. Your book.
Yes.
Before we go into the book, I want to ask you, now that you've done all this research and you're so familiar with this disease, if somebody came to you today as a physician, and I want to let everyone know that you, and correct me again if I'm wrong, you are not practicing medicine. You have devoted your education and your wisdom to writing this book and speaking about Lyme. Is that correct?
That's correct. I've retired from clinical practice, and now I'm just giving lectures and going around the country and Canada and educating people.
So if somebody came to you today after you've written this book with symptoms like your son, and we'll get into that, would you be able to diagnose them as Lyme?
Well, Lyme is very difficult to diagnose in many cases. That's why I'm trying to educate people, because it can be mistaken for the flu, for a cold, for rheumatoid arthritis, other types of arthritis, fibromyalgia. There's a whole long list of things with confusing diagnoses, and Lyme is often misdiagnosed. But that's one reason I wrote the book, because I talk about the common symptoms, the symptoms that might not be so common, things that might surprise you, and ways that you have to examine the history of the patient, do a good physical exam on the patient, and do what's called a review of systems to see what's happening with that patient now in order to make the diagnosis. Even though Lyme is quite controversial, everybody agrees, including the CDC, the FDA, the National Institutes of Health, that Lyme must be diagnosed clinically. Although lab tests can support the diagnosis, you have to look at the patient, and based on everything that's happening with that patient, you have to make the diagnosis. So I'd like to think that if I were in practice at this time, that I would be open-minded to consider Lyme as part of the differential diagnosis in assessing a patient.
I think one of the things that I'm not scientific, but
that's okay.
Yeah, no, but I'm listening, and I think one of the things that's kind of jumped out at me in everything you just said was history.
Right.
I think that's so important. I mean, when you're diagnosing someone who has never had a stressful thing, or never felt like they were losing their mind, or have been athletic and then all of a sudden, or for me, I have a history of arthritis, so that's there. But if you have never had arthritis, I mean, those are the kinds of things that you would take note of, the history and what patterns there were. Is that a good indication of what I'm saying?
Yes. The issue is that Lyme is a little more complicated than we would like it to be. Part of the problem is more than half the patients that end up having confirmed Lyme disease never remember a tick bite. So you have a patient going into the doctor, they may not report that they're from an area with a lot of ticks or anything like that. They may not even suspect Lyme themselves. So you have a person that goes in and they're ill and they don't remember a tick bite. A lot of physicians think that you need to have things like migrating joint pain before you can diagnose Lyme. That's not the case. A lot of physicians believe that you have to have what's called a target lesion rash or a bullseye rash, which technically is termed an erythema migrans rash. Now, that's also not true. Probably less than half the patients have any kind of rash with Lyme disease. Maybe 30 to 40%, probably less, and none of our numbers are very concrete. These are estimates. Have what is a maroon, solid, oval kind of rash. Doesn't look like a bullseye, doesn't look like a target. Maybe only 10 or 15% have that target lesion, that bullseye, that you hear about all the time on TV and in the newspapers. So you can't just say if the person has a rash, they have Lyme, because lots of people don't have that. A third thing that you have to consider is that even the CDC, the FDA, National Institutes of Health, comment that Lyme is a clinical diagnosis. You cannot go by lab testing. And there's all kinds of different estimates about how many Lyme cases, actual Lyme cases, are missed with the standard tests, which are called ELISA and Western blot tests.
Okay, so let's hold that for just, because I know somebody
Sure.
just called, so I want to acknowledge. Hello?
Hi, this is Elizabeth.
Hey, Elizabeth, how are you?
I am good today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So tell us about you, Elizabeth.
Well, I found a lot like the people in her family. I have chronic Lyme disease as well as some of the co-infections. And I did not have a bullseye rash. I did have several ticks, but absolutely no bullseye rash to go along with any of them. I even held on to the ticks for a while, expecting it, and did not get the immediate acute symptoms that a lot of times the medical professionals are looking for. And my Lyme progressed over several years before we were able to figure out what it was. So as she is saying, I absolutely agree, and getting a diagnosis is probably one of the hardest parts of this.
And what has been, so how long did it take them to diagnose you?
I began symptoms in 2009 in the summer, and I was finally diagnosed in July of 2013.
4 years.
4 years.
And tell us what some of your symptoms were.
Well, I had a variety of symptoms, and I think Lyme mimics many other diseases, which makes it very difficult to diagnose unless you know what you're looking for. My initial symptoms started out a bit different than other people. I mimicked Crohn's disease or other gastrointestinal illnesses, and that was just not on the radar. And then as things progressed, as she mentioned, arthritis, I mimicked, MS. They thought maybe lupus for a while, pretty much all of the autoimmune disorders. We went through all of those, and nothing fit. And then I started losing my mental abilities, which was very, very difficult when you have brain fog and you go from this intelligent person to someone who can't remember simple words or how to operate your coffee pot. You can't drive anymore, things such as those. I had a lot of interesting things that you just wouldn't associate unless you're really looking for it. I had some hearing issues that are better, debilitating nausea, sinus pressure, tooth pain, fine motor skill problems, numbness and tingling. My eyesight kind of went. I had a lot of floaters, and oddly motion sickness is worse. And as I've been treated, all of these things are better, but these are things you just wouldn't think about when you're looking for Lyme. But unfortunately, they go along with it, as well as many other symptoms.
Wow. So let me ask you something. So you can feel better.
Oh, I feel so much. I'm actively in treatment. I've been in since July. I have probably another year and a half to go, but to go from essentially not being able to function, and my day was spent on the couch, I couldn't even make it to my mailbox, to now I am outside every day. I'm walking in the mornings for 30 minutes to an hour. My brain is back. It is just amazing. If you can get diagnosed and start getting treatment, everything changes.
And you will progressively get better.
I am planning on it.
So you sent me that picture? Did you send the pic? Is it all right if we show it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So this is 9 months into treatment.
And you're still on all these meds?
Yes.
So some of these meds, these are vitamins, these are herbs, these are homeopathic remedies, these are antibiotics. What are they?
The ones with the white lids in the medicine bottles are all different types of antibiotics. Some of them you do several rounds of. There are a few also in the background that are antibiotics. They're liquid ones. And a lot of that is also fighting babesia, so anti-parasite type things. You have to take vitamins and supplements so that your body can handle the antibiotics, and you must take a lot of probiotics and the right kind of probiotics so that the antibiotics don't harm your digestive system and end up with something like C. diff.
So how long does it take? You take this every day?
I don't take this every day. I go on some medications for about 2 weeks in general, and then you go off for a week and let your body rest and build it back up, and then you go back on again. So you're on and off, but everybody's different. People respond differently. Practitioners treat differently. There's definitely not a uniform way of doing this, and everyone has their own toxic brew of different tick-borne illnesses and what it's done to your body. So your treatment really has to be targeted towards you, and you have to work very closely with your practitioner to decide what is right for you.
And how long did it take you to find someone that you could work with?
Oh, goodness. Well, when I finally had an idea of what I actually had, it took a few months. It is very hard to find Lyme-literate people where I live because in the state where I live, they are risking their medical license to treat chronic Lyme. So although my practitioner is wonderful and she is one of my heroes, I can't say her name because she would be put into a legal bind. But it took me several months. It was word of mouth. It was finding other Lyme patients. It was me going, hey, I think I have Lyme, and not being private at all about it. And eventually I found the right people and got to the right medical professional.
Oh, wow. So you want to stay on, Elizabeth?
Sure,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let me go back to Dr. Kathy. I know you've been listening and writing down things. So what?
Elizabeth has given me so much to talk about here. She has hit on such great points. First of all, don't feel alone, Elizabeth. I get called every day since I published this book with people asking me to be their doctor, and I am retired, so I can't comment on their specific cases, but I would love to be able to refer to more physicians. And if you have a good one and that doctor is willing, please contact me with the information, because there are people all over the country that need to be connected with appropriate healthcare providers.
So before you go on, I have a question on the chat now. There might have been something I missed. But did you say, Elizabeth, that there are doctors that are not allowed to treat Lyme?
Yes. Where I live, if they treat chronic Lyme, and it's not acute, but if they treat chronic Lyme, unfortunately, they can lose their license.
Okay.
There's a chapter in the book that talks about the controversies around Lyme disease and how this has all evolved, and why there is so much discord around who treats and who doesn't treat. But it's evolving. It's very slow, but we're making a little progress, and there are more people that are willing to see these patients. But it hasn't been easy for them.
So is it that they're not willing to, or they're not medically allowed to?
Well,
if I
different
could
states.
address,
Okay.
sorry.
Good. It's by state, Kathy?
Sometimes there's big controversy between the Infectious Disease Society of America and the International Lyme and Associated Diseases group. Both have sets of guidelines out. Both are currently expired guidelines, but they have been equally validated. But there is still a lot of controversy. There were court cases in Connecticut where now Senator Blumenthal was the Attorney General, and what that resulted in was the state passing laws that people were allowed to treat outside of the infectious disease guidelines. But Attorney General Blumenthal went on to become Senator Blumenthal, so that kind of went by the wayside at this point. Now they're trying to pass national legislation, but that's still in the works.
So we have a woman on our chat, and I'm going to start with you, Kathy, and then maybe Elizabeth can chime in and help and tell me what we do. So this is Jennifer, and she said, I need a Lyme literate doctor for myself in eastern North Carolina and one for my mother who is in southwest Virginia. My mother is confirmed with Lyme, and I strongly believe I have chronic Lyme as well. What should she do, Kathy?
Well, you can get referrals from the Lyme disease associations that are near you. Sometimes you may have to travel far. Unfortunately, my son's doctors, he lives in Indiana. I live in Pennsylvania. His doctors are in northern New Jersey and in Washington, D.C. So sometimes you have to travel to find these doctors. But there are organizations that will help to connect you with Lyme literate physicians. Now, as Elizabeth said, these folks can be few and far between. Lyme, for those who go on to develop a persistent or chronic problem, these patients are hard. These aren't easy people to diagnose and treat. But as Elizabeth also said, there needs to be a good collaboration between the healthcare provider and the patient. And once you connect with somebody, then you can start moving forward to getting well. And Lyme patients are time consuming. Many insurances do not cover it. So it's always a give and take situation where the patient and the healthcare provider have to work together. So my comments would be try to contact a Lyme disease support group. Try to get through word of mouth. You can contact me through my website, which is www.tickpearls.com, or through my email address, which is tickpearls@gmail.com. And we'll try to connect you with people that are seeing tick-borne illnesses. Because Elizabeth also mentioned it's not just Lyme disease. Ticks carry a lot of different infections.
And we have somebody else on our chat who said, I was misdiagnosed for 4 years and was finally diagnosed twice last year. One of the doctors is a disease specialist. All he wanted to do was keep me on all kinds of meds that forced me to come back for more prescriptions, but didn't do anything to treat the Lyme. Every doctor I can afford to go to insists Lyme isn't in North Carolina, or one round of antibiotic cures it.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
that
Elizabeth.
sounds like a lot of people that we meet. I've met a lot of Lyme patients, and unfortunately, the two people on the chat sound very typical. It is very hard to find a doctor in the southeast. You will have to be willing to travel. They are here, but as Dr. Spreen said, she gave some great ways of getting in contact with people who can get you referred to the Lyme literate physicians that you need. I do wish we could be more out with giving their information. Unfortunately, they are risking their livelihoods to treat us. So please do contact some of the organizations that Dr. Spreen mentioned, or her, and then they can get you in touch with who you need to work with.
Elizabeth, another question, and then, I mean, this is really fabulous. I'm so happy people are asking questions. So
Yes.
if you have any question at all, please feel free to ask us on the chat or email me separately to my emails above my head, Marilyn at reenchant, REENCHANT, planetearth.com. And if you can't ask here, but you want me to help you figure something out or connect with Kathy or Elizabeth, are you available for somebody to connect with? You don't have to give us the connection now, but if it's offline, is that possible?
Offline, I can do that.
Okay.
I wish I could do more, but I am risking my own insurance. They don't pay for much, but just even the little bit that they pay for keeps us from going
that's
financially bankrupt.
Okay, that's good enough. So email me, and I will further connect you to Elizabeth and to Dr. Kathy as well. And Debbie Bruck, who is a dear friend and homeopath, she says that Todd Hoover, MD, homeopath, presents 2 cases of Lyme disease. And you can find him at toddhoovermd.com/ARTICL. And these will all be in our show notes, which we will have like within like today or tomorrow. So any of this information that you might want to get a hold of will also be in our show notes. Okay, we have another caller. Hello?
Marilyn, this is Debbie.
Hey, Debbie.
Hi. Yeah, I put a couple of notes there into the chat. I just did a quick search and found Dr. Todd Hoover, MD, is a very famous and competent, well-known physician and homeopath. He presents 2 cases there. On my website, I also have numerous pages giving also cases and other physicians and homeopaths with basic homeopathic remedies. One of the things that every homeopath knows is that ledum palustra is the very first remedy to take as a preventative, which I used to give to my children and my grandchildren when they would come in from the field or from playing ball, and you'd find a tick even embedded deeply, and you have to know how to take it out properly. So that will prevent the manifestation of an illness to begin with, and it might even help to alleviate symptoms.
Debbie, do you know how to reach Dr.
Yeah. I have the link right there to Dr. Todd Hoover, MD. That's his website. So if you click that page, you'll get to him.
Now, does he see patients?
Yes, he's an MD.
So he's an MD. So he's a homeopath and an MD.
He's board certified in family practice. He lives in Pennsylvania. So he's right in Lyme country.
That's where Kathy is from, right, Kathy?
Right.
Yes.
Right. So I'll put in the chat his contact email. So you can contact him, and there are plenty of other homeopaths and physicians also who are very competent and could probably help to alleviate some of the symptoms. I understand that it is a devastating disease, and it just keeps getting worse as time goes on.
Well, thank you, Debbie.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
Dr. Kathy, do you have any questions for Debbie?
Well, I just wanted to mention that, yes, I talk a lot about the various ways that Lyme can be treated, either with traditional Western medicine, with antibiotics and a variety of other modalities, with homeopathic treatments, osteopathic treatments, chiropractic. There are a number of ways, and as Elizabeth had mentioned, this is not, for the chronic patients, this is not cookie cutter medicine. One size does not fit all, and you have to target that individual patient and their case at that time. And it may take a variety of treatment methods to be able to start helping those people. And you may need to pick one from column A and one from column B. I am an advocate of probiotics. I think that does help to stabilize the GI tract. And Elizabeth had mentioned that, sorry, my clock is
That's okay.
is taking the time here. Some of the things that she was surprised about, I was surprised about too. There is a lot of neurological problems, a lot of problems with the senses, visual problems, hearing problems, sensation problems, numbness and tingling. All those things need to be addressed. And there are the other co-infections that they can't be ignored because Lyme doesn't travel by itself. In fact, one of the conditions, which is also caused by a Borrelia, that is what causes Lyme disease, is called Stari, and that is particularly in the southeastern part of the U.S. And people that say that there's no Lyme in North Carolina or South Carolina or Florida or Ohio or just about every state denies having Lyme. That is not the case. The reason why it doesn't seem like there's Lyme there is that we're not counting very well. And the public health department, our local one, bought 2 copies of my book because they have no idea how to manage this epidemic. And they need advice too. And we all need to start counting better and reporting these diseases. Otherwise, we'll never get a good handle.
Well, that's well said. And Elizabeth?
Yes.
Are you still there? Did you have any questions for Debbie?
No.
Okay.
I agree with Dr. Spreen, though. It's very important to work on an individual basis because each patient is going to be a little different, and there are definitely different avenues of treatment or combination of treatment avenues that each person is going to want to do on an individual basis. And once you find those people that can help you, it's going to be great.
Right. Debbie?
And I agree too. I do feel, holistic care, doing every single thing possible is the way to go, and to understand what's happening to you, to realize if everything that you are actually manifests in your gut, then you have to take really, really good care of that part of your body.
Cool. Well, thank you, Debbie. And I know that Debbie put another link to Dr. Klinghardt and Peter Alex on the chat as well. So we want to make sure that, people pay attention to that as well, because just like all of these ladies are saying, not one remedy. It might take a couple of different types of remedies. It might take a couple of different types of this or a couple of different types of that. You have to find the physician or the method of care that is good for you as well. But we want to make sure that all of you out there that have questions get some answer. I know it can be very lonely when you're not feeling well and you don't know where to go and you don't know who to talk to. I had a recent bout with something, and it's very scary because you don't get the answers you're looking for, and you don't know where to go for the answers. And people give you all different kinds of answers, and they're not always the same answer. And you can go to a doctor and get different answers. So it is confusing. It is scary. And now we have an opportunity today, in this moment, to have Dr. Kathy here, Elizabeth, Debbie's in the chat. I know there are other people in the chat that have some expertise. If you are in need of something, this is a perfect time to call us at 919-518-9773. Or you can certainly Skype in with us if you like on Computers 2K Voice. We're here, and we would love very much to support you in any way we can today or after today. This doesn't stop. Dr. Kathy's around. Once again, Kathy, could you give your email address again?
Yes, it's kspreen it's tickpearls at gmail.com. Sorry. And the website is www.tickpearls.com. And I would like to say an important point that two people brought up. One of the few things that we know for sure about Lyme disease is that the sooner it is identified and appropriately treated, the sooner after the infection that occurs, the better chance for a positive outcome. And all of us here have had delays in our treatment and delays in the diagnosis of the disease. So it's so important to educate healthcare providers. And some patients have had a lot of success in taking my book into their healthcare providers. Now, some doctors resist that, but others are very welcoming, and they recognize that they have more to learn, and it's become a good collaboration between patient and physician, because not everything works instantly for people. And for people with persistent symptoms, the treatment might have to go on for quite a while.
And here is something from Eliza Gray, and I think this is important for you, Elizabeth. She said, this is a comment on the call as antibiotics. No one wants to take this quantity of antibiotics, but they are the lesser of two evils. When you are desperately ill, I was barely able to get out of bed with recurring fevers, extreme exhaustion, shooting nerve pain, making me unable to walk, extreme dizziness, shakers, twitchers, arthritis. Antibiotics and supplements saved my life, but took 1.5 years.
Yes. Oh, I'm nodding my head. Yes, and absolutely. I've never have been someone to just take a pill to fix something. If I have a headache, I try to deal with it. I don't necessarily go for the ibuprofen. But when you are so sick and you are getting sicker with a mysterious illness and you are very concerned that you are going to die, and then you find someone who knows a combination of antibiotics that are going to start easing your symptoms and allow you to live, absolutely. That's they saved my life. I completely agree. Yes. And if I would like to mention something else, because I know there are a lot of us out there who are just, well, I'm better now, but a lot of us out there who, when we start going to the doctors, we are incredibly sick and we have all these strange symptoms. And a lot of the doctors that we're going to are just not educated on Lyme. I don't think they're trying to be malicious. They just don't know. So I think Dr. Spreen had a great idea of taking her book in, if they are open to that. I had 3 different primary care providers trying to figure this out and was met with 3 different reactions. The best one was someone who really tried, but just at the end of it had no idea, and I figured it out. Unfortunately, that person just simply stopped contacting me. I would call and they wouldn't call back, things like that. And then I had another one who, unfortunately, when she couldn't figure out what it was openly hostile to me when I would need to see her or when I would go into the office. So please don't let that discourage you from seeking medical treatment. You will figure this out. You will find the right person. It will happen. You have to be your own advocate and just find the people who are going to help you. And it very well may not be the first person you see. It wasn't. I think I went through 7 or 8 doctors by the time I finally got to someone who could truly help me, and all of them had different reactions to me. Some of them would insist that I had mental issues. Others were just hostile because they couldn't figure it out. But stick with it, and you will find someone.
That was well said, and thank you. I know that was from your heart, Elizabeth.
Yes.
And a lot of people needed to hear that.
Marilyn, if I could just
go ahead.
begin for a minute. I used to be one of those doctors that said, oh, yeah, 10 days worth of doxycycline, you'll be fine. Lyme is no big deal. Until that attitude nearly killed my son. So I had to evolve my way of thinking pretty quickly. And I had to learn very fast. And fortunately, because I was able to contact a local Lyme disease support group, and they put me into contact with physicians who knew about Lyme and who knew about these other tick-borne diseases, my son was saved. But somebody mentioned you don't want to be on all these antibiotics, but a lot of people are not functional unless they're on some of these antibiotics. So my book goes through the entire gambit, how you get diagnosed, the controversies, the various medication combinations that you can try, plus all the symptoms. As Elizabeth and others have mentioned, the neuropsychiatric symptoms can be the most incapacitating. The brain fog, the inability to make decisions, the foggy thinking. My son has often said he felt like his thoughts were swimming through maple syrup. This can be very debilitating. I mean, Miss Delaware has Lyme disease. She was bedridden for a year before she was appropriately diagnosed and treated. Women that the MVP for the women's professional basketball league has Lyme disease. She's from Delaware. There are many people that are now speaking out that they have had Lyme disease, people that are well known for other things, and say they've been bedridden, and it takes a while. Now, there are a lot of people, maybe half the patients, get Lyme disease and a little bit of antibiotic, and they're never bothered again. But a significant subpopulation, maybe 30 to 40%, have these chronic and persistent problems. And just new data out of Hopkins and Stanford, this was about 10 days ago now, saying that they have measured differences in the immune system in patients that have chronic Lyme disease compared to those who do not. So they have documented ongoing symptoms. So we're getting more validation. And hopefully, I know my book is now in the hands of over 300 healthcare providers. And we're doing training classes. There was just one in Hershey Medical Center in Pennsylvania. I'm going to Indiana next week to speak to doctors from 2 hospitals there, because the nurses who had chronic Lyme disease are forcing these physicians to get educated. So we're making some progress, but it's slow.
You know, it's fascinating to me. First of all, I want to ask about your son. How is he?
Well, he still flares from time to time. So if I had all the answers, that wouldn't happen. But once again, he's going to be on an aggressive 15-month course of aggressive antibiotics, but we're also using supplements, herbals, probiotics. One of the key things in getting well in Lyme disease is you have to allow your body to heal through nutrition, through as much exercise as you can, through whatever modalities that you can do to strengthen your immune system, to strengthen your GI tract, to strengthen your other body systems, to give your body the best chance to heal. So he struggles, but he's, as Elizabeth, he's getting better. But it's a rough road.
You know, it's interesting. I guess it takes a physician to, get Lyme disease. It takes somebody close to a physician. It takes somebody like you who's a mom. You know, it takes people to have a personal experience to be able to understand something that they might not have been able to understand before. We have another caller. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi, this is Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer, welcome.
Okay, I had to mute the computer. I'm sorry. I was
That's
getting
okay.
an
Just
echo.
just walk away from your computer so we can hear you.
Yes, Marilyn, I know you through the Women's Power Networking, and we actually spoke last Wednesday night, and I'm tuned in today. I'm the one whose mother also has Lyme disease, and I suspect that I have Lyme disease as well, and the frustration of this is overwhelming for both of us, and especially for two people in the same family.
Jennifer, is this you
doctors.
from Greenville? Is this you from Greenville?
Yes, from Greenville,
Jennifer, hi.
Yes, I'm just so thankful that I did run into you last Wednesday. I was at an extremely low point with this illness that I seem to have. I have finally found a doctor who has tested me for Lyme disease. I'm waiting on the lab results from that as we speak. But it has taken 2 years just to get a doctor who would even do the blood test. It's overwhelming to me, and the inability to find a doctor who will even listen.
Jennifer, this is Kathy Spreen. I'm glad that somebody ordered the tests on you, but be very careful. Even the CDC, who is the biggest advocate of the two-tiered testing methods, admit that those tests miss a high percentage of the cases. So
Right.
you can have a negative test, and most people do between, well, let's just say over half, but estimates range up to 90% of real cases that are missed. So you have to be careful. Just because you get a negative test doesn't mean you don't have Lyme disease. If you get a positive test, you almost certainly have Lyme disease, and that can help you get insurance to cover the costs and help encourage the doctor to treat you further. But be careful of the negative test. It doesn't necessarily mean you don't have Lyme disease.
Right. That is a definite. You know, I've researched this topic heavily, and I actually was misdiagnosed with. I've been diagnosed with probably every ailment under the sun at this point. Most recently, fibromyalgia, and my rheumatologist has referred me to a pain clinic. They tell me there's nothing else they can do to help me, and that seems to be the brick wall I hit with every doctor I see. Finally, I'm back at my primary care physician who's running blood work to try and figure out what is wrong. But I know in my heart I'm not going to get answers there, so I'm still on a quest to find a doctor who truly believes that Lyme is a chronic illness. So yes, I definitely am going to email all of you for information on any doctors that my mother and I both could go and see, because it's truly become a family issue for us, and it's extremely frustrating.
Did you both contract it at the same time?
Around the same time is when we both started showing severe symptoms of Lyme. Of course, I was told I had Rocky Mountain spotted fever, given a couple of courses of doxycycline, and then told, no, well, Rocky Mountain spotted fever doesn't act like that. Something else is wrong with you. But then I've just been referred to doctor after doctor after doctor. She, however, had a positive Lyme test 2 years ago.
Hold on a second, Jennifer. Kathy,
Yes.
So taking the blood test? I'm not just asked a good question. Is it something you would want to do? Like if you didn't get a positive response, is it something you want to take, again and again and again, or what?
Now, I'm not a big advocate of the ELISA and Western blot tests are what are called antigen antibody tests, and there are so many problems with them that are even recognized with by the CDC and all those other groups. That they're not exactly reliable. And if patients, they're definitely unreliable. If patients are not currently on antibiotics, a better choice, in my opinion, is the blood culture test. Now, I think there is a good test out of Allentown, Pennsylvania, from Advanced Laboratory Services, and I have their contact information in the book. But I always recommend that people call that lab and see if they're a good candidate. because they will take blood from you and see if they can grow the spirochetes that cause Lyme disease. So that's a much better alternative. The other testing, the ELISA and Western blot, if it's, as I said, if it's positive, that's great. If it's negative, it's meaningless. Okay, and repeating it, although you may get some additional antibiotics because it takes time for these things to develop. For example, when my son had his tick bite, we went in with the tick and the rash and the whole 9 yards, and I insisted that he be tested, but it was too soon. You're definitely going to get a negative if the blood is drawn too soon because it takes a while for the antibodies to form. So I would prefer people to consider the blood culture if at all possible. Repeating the test, yeah, maybe if the antibodies have kicked in by now, you'll get a positive later on. But the doctor needs to be courageous enough to take that patient's history, physical exam, and review his systems and say, this patient just might have Lyme disease and could benefit from treatment.
I want to just
add a couple of things to that?
Say that again?
Could I add just a couple of things to that?
Sure.
I did not get a positive test with the first two that were run on me. I ended up going through a company in California called iGenix, and that company's test worked for me to get my positive test. The regular ones that the doctors had ordered did not work for me. Also, when you do find a Lyme literate physician, they do exist, and please make sure that you find the one that is a right fit for you. It may not be the first one that you meet because everyone is different and everyone approaches it differently. So please find the person that is the fit for you and how you want to be treated, because that is a very personal decision, and treatment is long and intensive and difficult. And so please find the one that fits for you.
And that's with anything, really. But there are a couple of people on the chat that I feel that I don't want to, forget about. So Lyme 44, what is the average course of antibiotic treatment for a patient testing positive and diagnosed within 1 month of a bite? Dr. Kathy.
Well, if you go by the infectious disease guidelines, they limit treatment to, they say 10 days is probably adequate, but they limit treatment to 28 or 30 days, which is great for the people that aren't bothered by it anymore. But as I said, for the others that, the 30 to 40% that have persistent symptoms, you can need treatment for months and perhaps years. My son is now on a 15-month course, and I wouldn't even consider stopping that course at this point because he has so many symptoms in so many organ systems that we need to penetrate. Places like the brain, it's difficult for, only certain antibiotics will penetrate the brain. You have to have a physician that understands which of those do penetrate. The Lyme bacteria comes in several forms. It comes in a free-floating spirochete. It comes in a L form, which can be dormant and inside the tissues, and it can form cysts and biofilms. So you need very aggressive antibiotics that hit those different things. If you're just given a course of doxycycline, a solo antibiotic, the problem with that is it does hit the spirochetes that are floating around in the blood, but it also triggers them to burrow down into the tissues, get into the brain, into the joints, into the kidneys, into the heart valves. So that can be a big problem. When you stop the antibiotic, the spirochetes will come back out and you'll have a flare of symptoms. This is complicated medicine, and unless the physician knows what they're doing or the healthcare provider knows what they're doing, sometimes they can do more harm than good. So that's why we're so bent on trying to educate the healthcare providers and get the patients educated so that they can be their own advocate.
Here's an interesting little sidebar. Chris wrote on the chat that her dog had a tick bite. She took the dog to the vet. The vet diagnosed him or her with Lyme disease immediately and treated him. And then somebody else on the chat is saying that it was her vet who diagnosed her based on her symptoms with Lyme disease, couldn't treat her, and sent her to a human Lyme doctor. So that's quite interesting, I think.
Well, dogs are a sentinel species for Lyme disease. You start seeing a lot of Lyme in dogs, you better start looking at your kids because Lyme is around. And fortunately for the animals, the veterinary community, in my opinion, has been far out in front of the human medical system. They'll get an animal, the animal will be sick. Now, of course, they do testing as well, but in my opinion, vets tend to see a sick animal and treat that animal until it's better. They don't have the rules that say, oh, you have to stop after 10 days or 28 days or whatever. So the animals right now seem to be getting the benefit of people that are a bit more open-minded about these diseases, because dogs die from Lyme disease, usually from kidney failure.
This is one of the most, honestly, we've been on the air for, it'll be 3 years in July, right, I think? Mm-hmm. This is one of the most interesting shows, and we've had all kinds of shows, with all kinds of people from all over the world doing all kinds of things. This has been one of the most interesting, thought-provoking, provocative, helpful show that I think we have maybe ever done, or it's up there on the top of things. So we're going to be out of time in just a minute, but I do want to give Elizabeth and Kathy just an opportunity to share just another moment, but I do want to say that there's a lot of really great information on the chat that we are going to post on the BreakingFreeShow.com website and show notes. There's all kinds of information here from people who have Lyme disease. Debbie's posted some great information about antibiotics and things to, be careful of. I know that when you're ill, you're going to take whatever you can get your hands on that's going to make you feel better. And so that's an important fact. There's all kinds of information in here, names of physicians, people who need help and support. And there's Dr. Kathy's email is in here, and then Elizabeth has agreed to connect with you. So once again, if you want to connect with Elizabeth, feel free to write me at Marilyn@reenchantplanetearth.com, and I will also get you connected with Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, final words.
You can get better. It takes work, but you can get better. My life is very good now. Things are looking up, and I am joyful now. It was a tough road. I'm still on that road, but you can get better.
Great. Elizabeth, I really want to thank you so much for coming here today and speaking to us as frankly as you have and sharing so much of what you've been through. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And Dr. Kathy.
Yes.
What can you share with us in the final minute?
Be your own advocate. Advocate for your family, for your children. Take a look at my book. A lot of people have gotten help from it. We're trying to keep the cost very low because our goal was not to get rich by publishing a book. Our goal was to keep people from suffering the way we suffered in trying to maneuver through the healthcare system. And if, as a physician, I worked the ER for many years, if I couldn't navigate the healthcare system, who can? So take help from where you can get it. Try to get your healthcare providers to be educated. If you find somebody that's open-minded, work in collaboration, and you can get well. It takes a while, but because so many people are either denying that Lyme is a true disease or just don't want to take the time with the patients that some of these complicated cases require. So never give up.
Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Never give up. Ever, 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 ever. There are resources, and we've had some extraordinary ones here today. And I want to thank all of you that have been listening to the show. Please pass this information along. We're going to post the archive as well, and you can go back and use it as a resource. It'll be on our YouTube channel. Just go back and share it, because this show is really important. And everyone who has partaking in the show today, who has been on the chat, who called in, I really want to thank you. Jennifer, are you there still? You can reach out to me later. Is she there? Okay.
That was with me.
I want to thank you very, very much, Jennifer, stepping forward as well. I didn't realize that's who that you were, but I'm delighted. And if I can do
well,
anything,
I want to thank you because, like I said, it happened to be the right time at the right place. Meeting up with you last week, I was at a very low point, and I'm very encouraged now to go forth and advocate not only my treatment but my mother's treatment as well, and help to get us both better.
Well, I'm going to cry when I'm done. So you're welcome. I mean,
okay.
It's amazing how these things work out, really.
It really, truly is, that the world we live in is a wonderful, mysterious place, and, just thankful to have been a part today. Thank you both.
Because if I only told you how long ago Chris started working on this show, and how long ago I spoke with Dr. Kathy, and now Elizabeth has been able to step up and share. And I mean, everything is in perfect order and perfect time. And I would encourage anybody out there, everyone, to get Dr. Kathy's book. I think it's going to make a big difference to a lot of people, and like a Bible. So with that, I want to thank everybody that's called in and shared, and Dr. Kathy and Elizabeth and Jennifer and everybody on the chat. Thank you very, very much. And we will see you. We won't be here next week. We're taking the day off for Memorial Day, but we will be here the following week with another wonderful surprise show in store. So thank you all. Debbie as well. Love you all very much. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. That VidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.